Thank you, Chair. The red line in the boundary of the site is shown on the applicant's plan. You will see that the house coloured purple would be significantly less than 1 metre from the boundary with number 33, leaving no space for landscaping and giving an effect of over-dominance and significant visual intrusion, contrary to Wirral Heswall Borough Council guidance. You should also note that the report wrongly states the distance from the proposed house to Oldfield Drive as 10 metres, but as we've already picked up, we now know it is not. Local people object to the application because it would affect their amenity and detract from the appearance of the area. The objections raised the related issues of trees, landscaping, scale and visual appearance, and insufficient space between properties. The officers only report these concerns in the context of UDP policy HS4. Local people asked that permission be refused on the grounds of the paucity of design information, which is contrary to the National Planning Policy Framework, and because the application is in the conflict with the UDP policies LAN1 and LA1, HS4, GR5 and GR7, there has been no tree survey, no habitat survey, and a decision to grant planning permission could be open to challenge on these grounds. The council has called Oldfield Drive a semi-rural byway, and that is just what it is. It forms the boundary between Heswall and the rolling open countryside of Thurston, with its visitors' attractions. The committee report says the surrounding area is predominantly residential in character, with open fields forming the green belt on the opposite side of the road. The fields opposite this application site are not just green belt, but are an area designated as an area of special landscape value. The committee report makes no mention of this material factor. There are only 4 such areas designated in Wirral, and the UDP says that this reflects the planning authority's approach to the use of designation sparingly, and only to the landscape of outstanding value is given this label. Neighbours asked the tree preservation officer to visit, and TPOs have been put on trees in front of the site. But despite the proximity of the site to the area of special landscape value, there have been no tree survey and no habitat survey. The tree preservation officer noted for the attention of the officers that there are a number of trees to the front of this site that makes a material contribution to the character and amenity of Oldfield Drive, and should be a material consideration of any development proposal. It has therefore been decided to serve a TPO on the trees. This note also drew attention to the UDP policy LAN1 regarding the protection of landscape of special character and the surrounding area. This has not been brought to the attention of members. UDP policy LAN1 addresses development affecting areas of special landscape value. The reasoning justification says the policy extends to all proposals which are likely to have an impact on the character and appearance of the wider landscape, and that even with the urban and development proposals can often introduce intrusive features which can detract from an adjacent area of high landscape value or lead to an erosion of the character landscape, setting up the urban area itself. So in determining this application policy, LAN1 needs to be taken into consideration as well as HS4. Policy HS4 itself requires the provision of appropriate landscaping and boundary treatment, which relates the proposed development to its surroundings, paying particular attention to the maintenance of existing natural features, the vegetation in accordance with policy GR5. The committee report makes no mention of GR5, nor of policy GR7, which deals with trees and new development. Policy GR5 lays down requirements for the protection and enhancement of visual amenity. It says that it should be appropriate in terms of the nature and of location of the development proposed, the visual prominence of the site, the potential visual impact of the development and the character of the surrounding area, which in this case has been specifically designated as an area of special landscape value, bringing its own planning requirements. GR7 says that in assessing the protection given to trees, the local authority will require buildings, structures and hard surfaces to substantially preserve the wooded character of the site. GR7(9) requires the siting of buildings and structures to ensure that trees to be retained have adequate space to prevent damage to the canopy or root structures. You have seen the site, and I suggest that this proposal does not give that protection to the remaining trees. And there's nothing been shown in the paperwork that says this. So look at the site in this context. The committee report says Oldfield Drive has a mix of house types. However, the pattern of house types is also important. Near the main road, the houses are not quite as large as set closer together. Further away, in the vicinity of the application site, the houses become appreciably larger with a greater separation. The proposed house would fill the gap between two large properties with yet another large property. There would be a harmful impact from the cumulative mass of the three closely set houses. There would be no other grouping of three houses of this scale so closely set in this road. The proposed house itself would be advanced some 5 metres in front of number 33, further exposing its mass. The proposed house would not reflect local tradition in its use of materials. The committee report merely says that the garage has been located adjacent to the existing garage of 37 Oldfield Drive. In fact, this 5.8 metre high garage is not adjacent in terms of alongside, but is set in front of the existing garage, just 8 metres from the Oldfield boundary. The impact of the group of 3 houses and garages would be exacerbated by the loss of several trees, including the largest of the trees. The application site contributes to the belt of trees and greeneries which form the backdrop to the area of special landscape value and which separates the countryside from the Heswall residential area. The addition of the proposed house between the other two would erode the value of this belt in conflict with LAN1. Only finished yet. The committee report says the new dwelling would sit in line with the front elevation of number 33 Oldfield Drive, and as such will not result in any loss of light or overbearing issues. As you saw on your site visit, this is actually factually wrong. It will be some 5 metres further forward. This is a serious matter, but it should be noted that the house itself would approach to less than 1 metre from the boundary and dominate the neighbouring property, number 33. This would further harm its amenity and be in conflict with HS4. The strategic housing land available assessment identifies land to the west of number 37 as potential land for new houses. This points to the potential further development along this important protected belt and a potential cumulative impact on the area of special landscape value. It underlines the need to consider this application in the context of policy LAN1. Policy LAN1 says, and I quote, "The LPA will protect the character and appearance of areas of special landscape value from the adverse effects of development and will not permit proposals which would result in the loss of erosion or distinctive landscape features such as woodlands, hedges or trees without appropriate replacement provision, and will not permit other proposals which in terms of their cycling scale, form and external appearance would detract from the appearance of the area or intrude within important views into the or out of the area." End quote. There is no demonstration of circumstances which would justify the loss of so many important trees. This proposal would erode the important tree belt at the edge of the area of special landscape value. It would introduce a new dwelling and a garage of siting and mass which cumulatively with the adjacent houses would detract from the appearance of the area and with important views across the area and an erosion of a characteristic landscape setting of the area. This application is in conflict with LAN1, LA1, HS4 and GR5 and GR7. Has a paucity of design information, and I would ask this committee to refuse permission on those grounds. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Les. I think we're going to go to the officers to clarify some of the points before I to debate. So there's a number of issues there. Some clarification, please.
you through you, Chair. Just to be clear, the site doesn't lie within the special landscape value area. That designation lies on the opposite side of Oldfield Drive. This site is clearly within the primary residential area where the UDP does point new residential development towards. In terms of the trees to be removed from the site are clearly identified on the plan, which is shown on the visualiser now, and the trees that are to be retained. In terms of the tree preservation order, well, the tree preservation order was placed on it to give the council some additional control in terms of retaining trees along the Oldfield Drive frontage, principally here. The trees that are to be removed and shown clearly on the plan have been assessed by the council's tree officer, and he raises no objection to those trees that have been identified on the plan for removal. The other advantage of having a preservation order in place is that it does give the council additional control in requiring replacement or additional planting when we look at new development. If we just go to the proposed new dwelling there, yes, the single story element, which is this element here, the wraparound at the front, projects approximately 3.5 to 4 metres forward of the dwelling located here, which is number 33, Oldfield Drive. The two-storey element is roughly in line with number 33, although we do accept it's about a metre and a half forward of that elevation. In terms of as members who attended the site visit will know, there are a number of windows on the gable end of number 33 here. I think it's important to point out that the majority of those windows are secondary windows, with the principal windows on the front elevation and the rear elevation. I myself have been into that property, so I can confirm that whilst there will be some impact on these secondary windows, they are much smaller than to the principal windows on the front and the rear of the property, with the exception of one window right at the top of the house, which is the only window to that bedroom. But we feel that given the height and the massing of this new proposed dwelling, that window wouldn't be affected by the proposed new dwelling. So hopefully that picks up and clarifies on a number of points that have been raised.
Is there any comments from you in the committee? David?
Just a very quick one. Having been on the site visit, it was most informative and most interesting to see what was going on there. Just as a matter of fact, you've made comment on the separation distances on page 14 of the report. Can you just reconfirm what those separation distances would be between the houses on either side of the proposed dwelling in terms of what we normally expect in our planning applications made to the council?
The separation distances we have are for the principal windows to household rooms, and so it's where a principal elevation faces another principal elevation, we look at 21 metres, unless there's a difference in land levels between the properties, in which case we may look for additional separation. The separation distances that the council have don't really apply to this situation. We're talking about two secondary windows which provide an additional source of light to a room. So we wouldn't expect those windows to achieve the 21 metre separation distance. Matthew's explained that the window at the top of number 33 is the sole window to that household, that bedroom. But the relationship between the two properties essentially means that there will be outlook around the ridge of the proposed dwelling. It wouldn't significantly block the outlook from that room. So the separation distances don't strictly apply to this relationship between two neighbouring plots. They're really aimed at development is facing the principal elevations of
thank you for that, Matthew. I think just for the benefit of the audience and maybe for the committee members who didn't attend the meeting, can you just give us the dimension that there is accessible just between those side elevations of the three buildings? I think it would just help people to understand the context of how they relate to each other.
Yeah, so the two-storey element of the proposed dwelling is, by our reckoning, 9 metres from the side gable of number 33. It's much closer to number 37, and it's approximately 2 metres to number 37, but number 37 is set back to the rear of the proposed dwelling. In terms of the separation distance of the single-storey element, I think the width of the single-storey element is about 2.5 metres, so if you take that off 9, you get the separation distance of the single-storey element.
Thank you, Chair. Sadly, I wasn't able to make this part of the site visits, but very grateful to the illustrations we've provided by the Ward Councillor. I have to say, getting through to the summary of decision, which I think is a direct quote from policy HS4, considered the scale and form of development relates well to surrounding development and will not result in a detrimental change in the character of the area. From what I can see here, that is entirely untrue. In terms of the character of this area, shoehorning a house like this in between two other houses and losing trees which may or may not be important is absolutely out of character, and I cannot see how this should be really any thought at all. Further on, it goes to say separation distances are achieved, and we've heard separation distances. I think as members will know, I've sat at that chair many times and queried the sensibility of our separation distances in the context of areas like this. We're not talking about mass semi-detached housing estates or terraced areas. We're talking about areas of detached houses with largely open character. To me, this is absolutely ruining the character of the area.
Okay, well, the recommendation is approved on the table of comments. So, if there's no other comments, do we have somebody to propose the second? Not proposer? Steve proposed to be seconded. So we're going to go to the vote. So all those in favour?
I also make this comment, and I'll make again. There's no one's moved the reason for refusal tonight, so effectively there isn't any other option to vote on unless someone moves on and hasn't been moved. So just make it quite clear to people.
Well, we've already now moved and seconded. So that's why I said is there any more comments before? I did say is there any more comments before we go to the vote, and that's what that was asking for. So we've had a mover, we've had a seconder. So all those in favour, can you please show your hands? So those against? 4 against, and any abstentions? No abstention, thank you very much. So that's been approved. Thank you very much. Okay, thank you very much. We're now moving on to agenda item number 7, which is Trepassey Residential Home and 26 Hillside Road, Gayton, which is the extension and refurbishment of an existing residential care home with regards to upgrade and improve accommodation. Can we have the presentation, please, Matthew?
Thank you, Chair. To you, Chair. The proposal is for refurbishment, remodelling and the extension of an existing care home, including significant external landscaping works. In terms of principle, it's a primarily residential area, and new or remodelled care homes are acceptable in principle, subject to policy HS8. Policies HS15 and CH2 are also relevant, given their location on the edge of the Heswall Lower Village conservation area. The key issues are the impacts of the extensions to the character of the surrounding area, including the conservation area, and particularly the potential impact to residential amenity. The last issue perhaps is traffic and transportation. Considering the design, the proposal retains and incorporates the existing care home building, which was built at the beginning of the 20th century and is of some architectural merit. The extensions proposed are contemporary in design, and it's considered that they avoid over-dominating the care home due to land levels within the site. A full landscaping scheme has been submitted with the application at this stage. It shows a significant investment in both hard and soft landscaping at the site, including the reinforcement of screen planting through hedging and trees. Overall, the scheme is considered to adopt an approach to design which avoids harm to the host building and maintains character in the surrounding area. Considering residential amenity, this is a major redevelopment of the site. The main extensions are to the south, into the front garden area of the property, and to the north and west. And to the west, an existing flat-roofed two-storey structure will be replaced by a two-storey extension. To the south, development takes advantage of the change in levels, and amended plans avoid impact to the closest property, number 43 Hillside Road. A 21 metre separation distance is achieved, and obscure glazing would be used to avoid overlooking or privacy issues to that property. The extensions have been pulled back in amendments to the application from the shared boundary with this property. The two-storey extension to the west has been designed to seek to avoid overlooking, louvered windows and direct views to the south, and improvements before in relationship to the building. Considering traffic and transportation issues, the level of parking provision set out is considered to be acceptable for a facility of this type. A condition is, however, proposed to secure details of the management of parking and access during the construction phase of development to avoid impact to Hillside Road. Overall, the development is considered to provide a sustainable form of development, enabling the modernisation and expansion of the existing care home without significant harm to residential amenity, character, or to highway safety. It's recommended for approval subject to conditions, notably to secure details of materials used, levels, tree protection, landscaping, measures to protect badgers that may to use a site, obscure glazing to the southwest corner, and a condition prohibiting the use of roofs within the southwest corner of the site to avoid issues with the 40 foot.
Okay, so everybody can just go if anybody's interested, the nice little was here as a model of how it's going to look. So I don't know if there's any questions or any comments from the committee. Okay. Sorry, the cost of £6,000 again. Can we have a mover and a seconder, please? Steve, move, and Eddie, second. All those in favour, please show. Thank you very much. That's unanimous. Thank you. Would you like to take the model back with you now? If you'd like, okay. We'll pass it over to you.
There's one I made earlier, Chair.
Agenda item number 8, which is the Nursery and Garden Centre, Carr Farm, Birkenhead Road and Meols. It's just development. I'm not going to read all the words there, we know it's just for further development. So can we have a presentation, please?
Thank you, Chair.